When we're talking about color correction or color grading, um, well, these are two different things. The first two sections is about correcting the wrong color exposures and wrong matching of the colors between two different shots. But when we are saying color grading, we are talking about adding some looks, some different looks to your project. So the first thing we have to consider is if the shot is in the correct exposure or the legality of the shot. When you make a movie and you are going to give it to a broadcaster, the first thing they are going to examine is that if your color range is inside the standard framework of the broadcasting company, if it is legal. So I am going to switch from editing workspace to color workspace, and everything changes suddenly. This is, my friend, a vector scope. A vector scope is, let me just show how to, okay, that's fine. The 0 is the dark side of my my image. 255 or 100%, you are watching you can't watch it because it's cropped in the 100 is the very white section, the bright section of your image. And how this vector scope works, it actually starts to scan the color data of the image from left to right. That's why you see somehow a similar movement in the vector scope as well. I can judge about, I cannot trust my eyes, because your eyes can always cheat you because they try to adjust the wrong exposures. But the vector scope doesn't lie to you. If you see lots of things below 0, you mean that your image is underexposed. If you have lots of things above 100 or above 255, it says that your picture, your shot, is overexposed. So you have to keep things between 0 and 100, and to avoid touching 0 or touching the 100. Okay. A good shot is a shot that has for example, I can call this one a good exposure, because the whole spectrum of all colors is being distributed evenly throughout the vector scope. It says that we have enough dark areas, we have enough bright areas, and there's enough contrast between the dark or the bright one. But if things come to the middle, if all the colors are compressed in the middle, then there's a problem over there, and that's a flat image. Let me apply a fast color corrector on that. Normally this effect control is here. I just dragged and dropped it here because I needed to have this vector scope in front of me and the setting available. So if I just, I need to drag and drop here. Sometimes you see images like that and you don't know what is wrong. When you look at the vector scope, you see that all the color data has been compressed inside you know, it's not evenly distributed. So I can judge that there is not enough dark areas. There is not enough shadows, and there is not even enough highlights. So then I try to fix it. For this image, I see a lot of white areas all around, and I see that I can see that I got a lot of black areas, and I got a lot of white areas as well. But they are not going to touch the limits, so they are safe. So my image is legal, and I have a correct exposure. So this is the first thing we consider for every shot. So you have to go through every shot. Okay, I got a little bit of problem here, and I'm gonna explain it. And here I can see I don't have enough brightness, so I can start applying a fast color, and you know, can you see the bright side of the spectrum? I just push it slightly upward. Well, for our eyes, nothing important has been changed, but in terms of standardization of the picture, it is more it's an standard image to work with now. Second, I have to check. Well, sometimes you shoot and you forget to adjust your white balance every time, or you use two different cameras. In one shot it is very blue, in the other one it is very orange. How to match them? First, we have an issue here. It's a kind of a neutral shot, but the next shot I can judge that there are too much of red all around. That's why it is kind of a cold, but the next one is kind of a warm shot, so there is too much orange in it. How to fix that? You just need to apply a fast color correction on the wrong shot, and then this fast corrector gives me this hue, balance, and angle. It saves me a lot. I can grab this wheel in the middle and just move it around, so it works with the hue. So if there is too much red, the red side of the image is here. If there is too much of red, just escape from red a little bit. Can you see the red shift in the image? I am escaping from red to the blue, just a little. Before, after, before, after. Look at the vectorscope. Before, after. I clearly see that the redness of the picture has been dimmed down. So I can cut from this to the next one much safer, because they look similar now. Without width, it's colder now. So we went through the process of correction, thinking about the legality of every shot and if they can match next to each other. And now I'm going to talk about adding some look to your shot. So you need one adjustment layer for every shot or every sequence, just for the sake of simplicity, I add a adjustment layer for every sequence. For example, if we are inside the room, we need one adjustment layer for that. If we go in park, or if the sequence changes. Okay, I go back to the shift 1 to the project window. I make a new. Did you notice what I used? I used the tilde key. You remember that the tilde key is for making a window full screen. So I use the tilde key here. Tilde. Tilde key.
Oh, that's what they are. Okay.
So let me just, if you don't know, just tilde key. Tilde. Sorry. I say tilde. Tilde. This key. I use this key on keyboard for making a window full screen. Okay, I make an adjustment layer here, adjustment layer. Okay, and I drag this adjustment layer on top of those shots that I want to change the mood or the look, the color look of. I want to apply a general color look on all of this. I press Shift 7 to go to the effects again. First thing first, you start dealing with the curves, as you know. You got a couple of things like color curves, brightness, contrast, vibrance, highlights, shadows. These are stuff that you are familiar with from Photoshop. So the color curves are for, I just use an RGB curve and I drag and drop it on the adjustment layer. It is a series of different curves for adjusting. Let's say I am going to make all the shots much colder, so I add a lot of blue on all the shots and I dim down the red in all the shots and I make them darker. So you can see the same, the look. This look has been applied on all of them. And as I explained you, what is this graph? These areas are the dark areas of your image. So imagine that I want to add some green in the black but not in the white. So if I add some points around, I add some green in the black, but you see that this green is not added on the white parts because it's silent on the, so the bright side of your image, the dark side of your image. So this is the logic of these curves. So if you make the brighter side of the image brighter, the dark side of the image darker, actually you are adding the contrast of the image. So let's add a harsh contrast. So it's a contrasty image. The bright side of the bright parts of the image are brighter now. The dark side, parts of the image are darker now. So that is called S curve or S contrast curve. Okay. Or if you want to make it look yellowish, you just work at some what's wrong with that? Oh, it's off, sorry. I add a lot of red and a lot of green, but more red, and I dim down the blue. Everywhere is Mexico now. So, working with RGB curves, you have a couple of simple basic tools like brightness, contrast. Brightness, contrast are two very simple sliders that you have worked with in Photoshop, just to add brightness, make it brighter or darker, simply make it more contrasty or less contrasty, simple. Um, Highlights and shadows, shadow highlight. It's a very helpful. Um, Let me just mute the music. It just annoys me just every time. This shadow highlights tries to look at the spectrum, the vector scope, before, after. The shadow highlight tries to make the spectrum even more evenly distributed. In the other word, it creates some highlights and it creates some shadows. And you can just work with that. It works on some of the shots very nice without shadow highlight, after shadow highlight. Vibrance. If this image is not vibrant enough, you just add Oh, why don't we have a vibrance effect in Premiere? Color correction. Okay, that's fine. We add it later on with another method. Color balance, hue, lightness, saturation, you know that. Um, but these are very basic color changes, but there is also some presets as well. These Lumetri presets, I open it, I go to Speed Looks, the universal ones. We have a lot of different ready-made looks, like blue day for night. Okay, let's apply a blue day for night. I want to I shot these images in morning. I want to make them like evening. So I just opened what I did. I went to the effects, Lumetri presets, universal, and I just dragged this blue day for night onto this adjustment layer. Still not so much night, so I can add a curve. Curve, RGB curve on top of that, and make it even darker. So everywhere is like evening now. Let me delete those again, and this one and this one. Let's have a look at the other presets here. A film noir presets, SL noir. Which one? This one has more contrasty look. Noir LDR. What is it? Just let's check it out. Everyone is black and white and it's very noir. Very contrasty noir. You can combine different looks as well. Let's say you want to have a noir look here and another adjustment layer on top of that. You can bring another adjustment layer on top of that. You have to just make a new adjustment layer in project, a new adjustment layer, and drag it on top of it and add two different adjustment layers together. Just to turn one on and off, or sometimes use this, sometimes the other one.
So if you put one adjustment layer over the other, they're just going to blend. It's not going to like eliminate the other?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they're gonna be like, it's very similar to what you have in Photoshop or After Effects. Let's do it. Um, Let me just review everything. Oh, gold rush, gold heat. Oh, everything is just warm colors now. So we talked about color exposure, match between two shots, and working on different um, looks, adding the different values, make them colder, warmer, black and white, uh, more contrasty, and stuff like that.